Hey, friends, and welcome to your Andale Pues podcast. I am your host, Rose.
And I'm your co-host, Jezebel.
And this is episode number 8. How are we even here?
How are we here already? 28 days since we launched this podcast.
28 freaking days.
Dude, the support.
Crazy. Man, I am just like jaw dropped at how much support, how many followers we have throughout all the socials. Like, it's pretty exciting.
And I'm a little bit of a nerd. And so I created a spreadsheet where I'm tracking like the followers and like the engagement that we're getting. And dude, in 28 days to have over 600 people on all of our platforms is wild.
Right?
I don't even know 600 people. Like my graduating high school class was like 80.
Yeah. And then today with our snippet that you uploaded to Andale Pues TikTok, we've had so many people repost, seeing the engagement, because, I mean, we see everything.
Yeah. No, we love it.
Yeah.
So you want to tell them about what our topic is for today?
Yes. Today's topic is about women's mental health.
And dude, it's so important.
It is very important.
It's just, I feel like as moms and wives and professionals and, you know, people who really are out here doing the damn thing and like as busy as we are, like, gosh, mental health is so stinking, important. So I feel like I don't struggle a lot with mental health. So I can't really speak on it with like true mental health issues. But what I can say is that I've seen it firsthand. But I also think that it's important to highlight. I think a lot of people self-diagnose just because they see one misleading
some little signs.
Yes, or like a misleading article title, y de ahí se agarran. Or when I see people like on Facebook and you see their posts, like you kind of get to know what people like to post and what they talk about. But they'll share like a post that says, talks about a lot about like mental health and depression and anxiety and, those people who struggle to like do the dishes or to keep their house clean or to get things done, take care of their kids, take care of their husband. And they share it. Pero el fin de semana anterior, ahí andaban en el pedo. That to me, I'm sorry, I just can't.
Yeah.
And not to discredit people that have true mental health issues, because I believe that a lot of people have it. I just think that it's just over self-diagnosed.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've never been diagnosed, but I feel like I have my issues, and it just stems from feeling abandonment issues. And that goes back to mental issues, because you're like, am I worthy enough? Am I good enough? Am I, how can I say, important enough? Like, you question all of those things growing up when you have abandonment issues, and it all goes back to mental,
See, and it's so funny because I had a great childhood. Like I had both of my parents. I always felt loved. Yes, I have issues from some of the stuff that was going on, but like I have different type of abandonment issues, but they don't stem from like childhood or something traumatic like yours do. Mine stem from like adults being shitty, to me. But tell me a little bit about how you handled that growing up. Like,
I mean, I don't have a real answer to that, because it's like, I feel like I grew up so young because it was just me and my grandma all the way till I was 13 years old.
In other words, no, you didn't have a choice but alivianarte. Exactly.
Yeah, because that's all I saw. And my mom, which is my grandma, que en paz descanse, she taught me everything I know except live without her. And I will never forget all her teachings and everything I learned from her, because that woman was tough as a rock. Like, she was amazing and everybody loved her. And I
wish I would have gotten to me.
Oh my God, she would have loved you and you would have loved her. She was so loving, and I had a good childhood with her. I just felt like I just had some abandonment issues because I was raised by my grandma, and my siblings were raised by my parents, and they have their reasons, and people say this, people say that, and I really don't, at this point in my life, like, I really don't give a shit what the reason was. But it was like, even though there's a reason, like, still look for me, still be there for me. And now it's it's with my kids too. And it's like, like that's why I stay to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not going to continue to hurt my own feelings anymore.
If you take nothing else from us, always remember this. People know exactly what they are doing when they are doing it.
Yep.
And don't ever let anybody tell you different because they're a liar. People know exactly what they're doing when they're doing it.
And you know what? And this goes back, and I speak for my kids, and I speak for myself. Showing the fuck up for your kids is so fundamental for their mental health. Like, you would not fucking believe. And I get really emotional because this has a lot to do with my kids.
I just can't imagine life being any other way.
I mean, my kids are my everything, dude. And me not showing up for them, like, I don't ever want them to feel for me how I felt growing up. Ever. And
I think you're doing a good job of that.
And I've reached out to their dad, and I've told them, like, hey, just show up. And it's like it goes in through one ear and out the other. And it's okay, Pero al rato, when my kids are older and everything, like, good luck to you.
That's one thing I learned too growing up, is that as kids, we always learn the truth. We always learn the truth. It may take a little bit longer than mom would have liked, or that dad would have liked, or grandma would have liked, but we learn everything and we see everything.
And just a disclaimer, this is not bashing anybody. This is just open your fucking eyes. And if you still have time, show the fuck up. Seriously, because it's very vital and very important to our children's health. Any type. Health in everything.
Have you ever had depression, like actual, like, it was depression? It wasn't just like, dude, I'm feeling really down, I don't feel that good for a couple weeks, but like true debilitating depression where you can't get out of bed. Tell me about that.
When I lost my mom, like, okay, it started before I lost her, and people don't understand this, like, people cope differently. My way of coping is running the fuck away, staying the fuck away from everybody, because I don't like this right here. I don't like to show this part of me. I always try to act like I'm this tough person, because I really am. But when it comes to my mom,
I feel like you're already like a really emotional person as it is. Or an emotional bitch. But I know that that's always like one subject that is just whenever, so touchy for you.
Yeah. Whenever I lost her, it's like, I remember not getting out of bed. And if I got out of bed, it was strictly just to take my kids to school and come back home. I remember my friend Olga, and she lives in Dallas now, was the one that had to come and like tell me, you need to snap the fuck out of it, because your mom wouldn't want this for you. I wouldn't take a shower, didn't clean my house. I just wanted all the lights out. I didn't want to see nobody. I just wanted to be cooped up in my house. I would just leave my house to take my kids to school and pick them up from school, and that was it. And I felt like finally she was like, and when my kids were around, like, I would try to hide it from them and pretend, but it was just something that just took over me completely, and nobody fucking knew, because I don't go out there and post about it.
I don't put my business
out there and tell nobody, because I don't want people feeling sorry for me. You know what I mean?
Dude, and listening to you describe that, literally listening to you describe that took me back to my experience with it. Not me personally, because I have never had depression like that. The worst that it's been for me is having the baby blues after my second baby. But my story comes from my mom, because that's when now looking back, like, I realized that she was in a true depression, and everything you described is literally what she went through. I had to have been in not middle school, but like intermediate is what they call it in university. And I was probably 10, 11 years old. I remember there was a time, and I don't remember how long, it wasn't like a whole year or anything, but it was a couple months. We were supposed to leave the house at 7:30 to leave to school. My mom was barely getting out of bed at 7:25. And I don't remember the specific situation that put her in that position or at that place. But I remember, like, she always wanted the blind shut. Like, as soon as we got back, like, she wanted, iba y se encerraba. in the mornings to like go to school, like getting her up was like she would peel herself out of bed. And I was late every day, probably for like 2 months, every single day. And it was like, oh, I'm sick is always what I would say is, oh, I'm sick. Oh, I'm sick. Because she would just go drop me off. Like she wouldn't even sign me in, and you're supposed to sign your kids in, you know. So I'm not really sure the specifics of how it all went down like that. But I remember always like the teacher was just like, again,
I mean,
you know, right?
My kids were late. Not all the time, but
and I didn't understand, like, Mom, levántese. Like, you know what time we're supposed to leave. You know what time we're supposed to be there. Like, I have to go to school. And like, she physically could not. And it made me, now it makes me so sad because I wish I would have been kinder to her.
It's the weirdest feeling because you try and no matter what you do, there's no taking that. So then I just started to pray.
It's like you have to kind of let it run its course a little bit, right?
Yeah, and it was all because, you know, you go through different phases when you're mourning somebody, when grief, you know, you go through different stages of grief. And I was numb for a long time, you know, and then I was going through a divorce and everything. So it was everything
all at once.
It was just a lot. And I'm so thankful for Olga for coming and just making me snap the fuck out of it because literally, I don't know what would have been of me if I continued in that path. I mean, I wasn't even working, Jezebel. I was working at a salon in Midland, and I just stopped working.
Didn't even go.
I owed rent, and I remember one of my cousins came through for me, and he was like, "Just cut my hair for forever for free," and I was like, "Yeah, anytime, you know." But I mean, it went that far, you know, to where I couldn't even pay my rent because I didn't get out of the house.
Here's what pisses me off about this entire thing is how loosely people use depression as an excuse for things. Because right now you're saying this was really a horrible situation that I was in. Wouldn't go to work, could barely take care of my kids. And for somebody to just be like, Ay, la depre me gana. Because they don't want to do something or they can't get themselves to do something like procrastination, like that triggers the hell out of me. And listen, I know it shouldn't, but it really does because now I know your experience because I had never heard that story.
I don't like to tell it because it's
hard and it takes you to a different place. But like with my mom, I don't like going back to that place either because I feel so bad. I don't feel bad for myself, but I feel bad that I wasn't kinder to her and I should have been more helpful and I should have been more supportive and I wasn't. And I hate that. And it bothers me still to this day because we've never even talked about it. And I wish, I don't know how to bring it up and just be like, Mom, I see it. Like, I'm really sorry you were going through that or something.
And you know what? I think Julian went through a little bit of a depression because...
not the kids.
Julian was so close to my mom. So close to my mom. I mean, this was 9 years ago. And, I mean, le preguntabas, ¿quién es el corazón de abuelita? And he would go like this. And I would catch him, like, he would want to wear her memory shirt to school all the time with her picture on it. And then one day he came home crying and said that somebody was making fun of his grandma on his shirt. And
freaking kids.
Bald. And I remember I could not find him. And I told the boys go look for him outside, or Alan, because Jalen was still little. And we couldn't find Julian. I was freaking the fuck out. Yo en mi depresión, like I was just like all tirada and shit, looking for him like a crazy woman outside. And I don't know why I decided, or Jalen was the one that said, open the closet door, and Julian was in a corner asleep with my mom's t-shirt in his lap. Yeah.
God.
And he was just going like this. And I was like, oh my dude, I fucking lost it even more.
That literally sounds like something out of a movie, you know, because
he adored my mom. I mean, my kids all did.
But sometimes they have, or you have a special relationship, or not a special, but a more tight relationship with somebody too. So.
My mom would.
That's so
Mama knew we were gonna go over. Les tenía tortillas recién hechas y sus frijolitos because my kids could fucking eat her beans with a spoon and tortillas, like literally. Yeah. But it was so sad because I feel like he went through a little bit himself, but he was a kid también, you know. I think he was in and out of it.
It's hard for them to understand like any of that, you know? So that was really heavy. We like dove right into the heaviness, you know, today. So to lighten it up a little bit, let's kind of talk about the lighter aspects of, you know, depression for people. So as I was mentioning before, it really bothers me and it triggers me when people say that, oh, es que me ganó la depre, ando depresiva, no, es que no tengo ganas de hacer eso porque traigo depresión. Like, it's not just a freaking little sniffle that you get. You know, and I feel like there's so many different people that have, or not people, but like, I feel like our generation has just kind of taken it and been like, and ran with it. Like depression and anxiety, I suffer from it. Yeah. I suffer from depression and anxiety. So
nobody wants to do that.
Like, and nobody wants to learn what it's actually like. Like, I wouldn't wish that on anybody to feel that.
Nope.
And like I said, I've never felt it before and I can strongly speak on that. Like, I wouldn't wish that on anybody because I saw what it did to, you know, my mom. So one of the things that I wanted to share was a couple of statistics because I believe that we all struggle with mental health to some degree. I believe that we all have some sort of level of anxiety. I believe that we all have some sort of level of depression that kind of comes and goes, right? Like with the ebbs and flows of life, I think some seasons you're like happy-go-lucky, Miss Positive, like let's go, rah, rah, rah. But then other times you are just like, ni me voltees a mirar, please, because I am just not into it, right? Turns out I was onto something. So I went onto the National Institute of Mental Health and I found that 1 in 5 adults in America suffer from some sort or some form of mental illness. When you think about it on a grander scale, that's 25% of adults in America over 18 are suffering from something. When you look at it in numbers, there's about 334 million people in America today. That means 58 million of adults suffer from something. So it's not to say that people don't go through this and that they're not experiencing this. But at the same time, like you have to know that like you can't just throw around these words, you know, loosely as a joke. If you're joking or you're, you know, saying something stupid, okay. But like when you're literally using it as an excuse, that's when I feel like I have a problem with it.
And like me right now, like I feel like I'm having separation anxiety from my son because he just moved. I mean, it's been hard. Like earlier today, he came over and, you know, he gives me a hug and I'm just like, oh my God, mijo, you look like you've lost weight. I'm like, you know, like things like that. And it just makes me have anxiety, like, because I feel like
you're missing out.
He's not underneath my wing anymore. So I can't protect him because he's doing his own thing. And just not knowing like what he's doing on a daily basis or where he's at. Maybe that's also toxicity.
Soy mamá tóxica también.
But
toxic traits as a mom.
I do have like separation anxiety from that because I missed him so much and I'm just like, I don't have that. It's not even about the control. It's about like knowing that he's gonna come home. And I usually stay up to wait for him to get home. And now that I don't know if he made it home or not, like it gives me such bad anxiety.
And then if you're blowing him up and being like, oh, well, let me know, that you're not letting him.
I don't even message him because I'm like, I need to let him grow. So I don't even message him. I did ask him to join Life 360, but he hasn't yet. So.
So I feel like that's a really good segue into like anxiety, right? So like we touched on depression and we talked about anxiety. And so I feel like now we can talk more about anxiety. And regarding anxiety, dude, there's some crazy stats.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
So this is from the CDC that conducted a study in 2019. And if you're like me, you have to take what the CDC says as a grain of salt because they are a little bit unreliable in some aspects, but these are straight numbers that I got from their research. Anxiety. 84.4% of adult Americans have some level of mild anxiety. What does that tell us? That tells us that almost everybody has some sort of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So when people say, oh, my anxiety is acting up, or oh, it makes me anxious, or whatever, like
That's a form.
It's a form of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Mild, but you can't use it as a crutch is what we're getting at. 3.4% of that 84% number has moderate anxiety. And moderate anxiety means that like it's constantly on your brain. You always are dealing with it and you are seeking advice or help from it from a professional.
Mm-hmm.
That's 11 million Americans that are seeking help, for that. 2.7% suffer from severe anxiety, which is 9 million people. This is that you are seeking help for it and you are some sort of medication from it, but also that it's a debilitating type of anxiety where I can't leave my house because I can't deal with all of these emotions and like I'm overwhelmed, by everything. So what does this mean? What does this tell us? It means that the majority of us have it and the majority of us are walking around with a little bit of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say I feel like we all have anxiety, I'm not far off on that. Like 84% of Americans, like that's a big number.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my humble opinion, I think that it's about deciding who you want to be, what you want out of life, and what you want your life to look like moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to let a little bit of anxiety derail your life and affect your life that much? Or are you going to just say, you know what, like I can do this and I can do this. And I feel like that's what really helped me.
Yeah.
Remember when we were talking about the ex-friends that I had said that my ex-friend like killed it in college, like a lo que te truje chencha, and she did it. So me, I was totally opposite. Got through Odessa College in 2 years. Did everything I needed to do there. When I moved to UTBB, that anxiety for me is what ended up getting me. And it wasn't just anxiety. Let me give you a little backstory. In college, nobody checks on you if you go to class. Nobody's taking attendance. The teachers don't care if you make it to class or not. They care whether you're there for the midterm, turning in assignments, and are there for the final. So nobody's checking on you. So if you don't go to class, ni madres. Yeah. Nobody gives a shit, right? And so for me, that was the biggest thing because that's really when I started really partying a whole lot. And that's the point where it's just like you're not like a full-on, very young college student, but you're in that transitional period where it's just like, okay, you're still in college, pero ya es tiempo que tú te alivianes también y empiezas a trabajar y encuentres qué quieres hacer. So for me, it was really hard because I wouldn't go to class. I would oversleep or be hungover from the partying or whatever. But what that cycle did for me is that it started to create anxiety on going to class because I would always think like, oh my God, like I didn't come to class. Everybody's going to judge me. And, because you got like bookworms in there who are in there for business and they want to get in, get out, get the highest grade possible and get out of there. Right.
Right.
Then you have people like me who just...
It's all right.
And so for me, it was always like, dude, they're going to know like I wasn't here in class and they're going to look at me funny. And then, so I'd missed 2 or 3 classes and then it was just like, oh my God, I'm so far behind. Like I should know better. Like I need to do it. Like, why am I like this? Blah, 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 blah. Then before you realize it, you've missed 3 weeks of class and it's just like, well, shit, now I got to catch up. So then you have anxiety about it. It's a vicious
it's
cycle.
like a cycle. Yeah.
And I remember one instance in particular, I had this class with 2 of the coolest girls ever. They played volleyball there. And, we were in one class and they were talking, what they were talking about sounded so cool. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, where did y'all hear that? Like, that sounds really awesome. They're like, oh, in abnormal psych. And I was just like, this semester? And they were like, yeah. I was like, I'm in that class. But bitch, I hadn't gone to class in like
no.
a while.
No, pues wow.
So it was so embarrassing and I will never forget it. That kind of lit a fire in me. And I'm like, well, shit, I got to go to class. Like, and they were like, well, where do you sit? And then I was just like, just wherever I can find a spot, because that really is how college is. Like, you don't really have assigned seating. People kind of know it's like unspoken, but you really can just sit wherever the hell and nobody even notices. Goes to say that this was all in my head. But dude, tell me why. I'm like, no, I need to go to class. So I decide I am going to class that afternoon. Bitch, tell me why I'm sitting down and they come and sit right next to me.
Oh, good.
They're like, we've never seen you in here. We didn't even know you were in here. I was like, yeah, I'm in here, but like, ya ni sabía qué inventarme. Dude, it was so embarrassing. But like that anxiousness creates like that vicious cycle of like, what are they going to think about me? What are they going to say about me? And I think that's why I hold such a strong belief of like, me vale madre lo que piensen. Yo lo que voy a hacer, lo voy a hacer, regardless of the opinion of others. And so I let that debilitate me. And so I failed out like 3 semesters, I think. 2 or 3. So I just quit going.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm done with class. I'm done with college. I'm not doing this anymore. Y ya me puse mejor a trabajar until I went back, after I had the first baby. But, I was using anxiety as a crutch.
And my anxiety began when I lost my son. And then after that, every pregnancy
I feel like every pregnancy would have been so
yeah, I was scared. I was like constantly, if I didn't feel the baby move, I started like imagining shit in my head. After I had him and he passed away, we had the whole funeral and everything. I had to get on anxiety medication. And I wouldn't take it because it would me apendejaba.
Yeah.
Like no other. So what I just started doing is I had researched a lot and looked on YouTube and stuff. And when I would feel like I was anxious, I would literally close my eyes and just think of a happy moment or find a happy place, like they say. And I would just breathe in and out, and just relax myself. Because honestly, anxiety, as much as it is a thing, it also can be controlled with your mind because it's all mental. Like for example, people say, "Oh, I'm addicted to weed." No, you're not. It's all in the fucking head. Like, and it's all in the fucking head.
The stats are right there. 84% of people suffer from it, which tells you like this is just something that you have to learn and find coping mechanisms.
Yeah, because I didn't like how the medication would make me feel. So I was like, I'm not taking this.
And I'm so glad you touched on that YouTube stuff because, dude, we have literally wherever my phone, you can find anything.
If it's not on YouTube, it does not exist.
If you are not finding something to lead you into a better path, you're not trying hard enough.
I mean, and there's people that have such bad anxiety because I have moderate. But to me, I'm like, I'm not going to fucking rely on medication.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to fucking be taking medication every day. I'm not going to feel apendejada all the time or just tired. Because I felt like whenever I would take this medication, it led me more into depression because I did get depressed after I lost my son.
Because then you're like,
not
feeling yourself.
Yeah, but if I wouldn't have had Alan, he was my firstborn. If I wouldn't have had Alan, I think I would have like spiraled down even more. But he was my savior.
Saving grace.
Because he would just, everything he did, like he literally started talking sentences at a year old, and he helped me get through it, and I didn't have to take my medication because of him, and because I did my research, like I said, and I found a little outlet, and I was like, okay, because I'm not going to depend on this medication. And people do depend on it, and it's like, try it this way. If it doesn't work for you, then take your medications.
Right.
But it worked for me, and I guarantee it will work for you. If you really set your mind to it, it will. Yeah. It really will.
And again, this is just somebody who doesn't have a debilitating case of anxiety. Okay. We're just talking about, we all have it and how we cope with it. Me personally, what I use whenever I have any sort of anxiety is this something that could wreck my life? In my mind, I think like, how big of a deal is this? And for me, listen, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but I'm that person that's like, go outside and touch some grass because 1000% works for me. And it's maybe a little bit woo woo for people, but like, honestly, and I even do it with my kids. When I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I'm feeling really frustrated, or I'm feeling really anxious about doing something or going somewhere, hardly ever happens, but it does happen. I just try to take deep breaths and get some air. I'll go outside regardless of how hot or how cold it is. And like literally standing on grass, just grounding yourself and just breathing is like, dude, I am bigger than these fears that I have, or I'm bigger than this anxiety that I'm having. So
mine is music.
I'll
just start listening to music.
My name is Jezebel Yanez, and I am a go outside and touch some grass type person.
And me, it's music for me. Like I just turn on some music and I just, get into that, and it calms me down.
That's so crazy because to me, music me altera más.
Really?
Like if I'm feeling like that, dude, I'm that person that like if you're driving looking for somewhere or whatever and like you're feeling like there's just too much, I'm the person that turns down the radio so I can see better.
Para que ver mejor.
Because to me, it just gets really loud and noisy. So when I'm feeling like anxious or whatever, I need it to be chill and quiet. No quiero oír nada.
No, not me.
And that's so interesting that you
because if I'm feeling anxious or whatever, I'll put in my my AirPods and I'll just put on some Julián y vámonos.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Julián can do that to me.
Julián does a lot of things to me. For me.
I know.
Julián does a lot of things for me, but he doesn't call me. He doesn't call my anxiety.
No, a ti te quiere dar por pistear a la verga.
For real. I mean, like, go freaking crazy. So I feel like, I feel like that's a really good place so we can talk about anxiety and how people use it as a crutch to not do the things that they need to do around their house.
Yeah.
And the one thing that my mom always said is that la pobreza no tiene nada que ver con la cochinada. And the reason I say that is because have you ever seen those TikToks where people are just like being like, oh, a day in the life, or it's a vlog, or they're posting something about let's clean together, and their house is fucking nasty. Spotless. No. Oh, no? They're wrecked. The house is wrecked and it's nasty. I don't know. Apparently
I wouldn't post that shit.
I don't know what side of TikTok I'm on if you haven't seen it.
No, I've seen it. I've seen both though.
But dude, to me, like people are talking on there like, well, we don't really have a lot of resources or whatever. And it's like, you don't have to have a bunch of resources as long as you have some water and some dollar soap from the Dollar Tree, dude, you can clean.
Yeah.
Like
that's no excuse.
But they live like this, and it's just like I suffer from depression and anxiety, and dude, I wish it didn't, but that triggers me so bad. Stop using it as a freaking excuse and a crutch. Okay, like have you come across videos? So have you come across videos like that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Have you came across the videos of people who grew up in homes like that? The mental damage that does, growing up in an environment like that does to kids. I never thought about it. I personally have seen hoarding firsthand, and not disgusting hoarding, not, you can't even walk through the house, but somebody very, very close in my life has some issues with overconsumption, and they grew up in a very poor environment. And I get where that kind of stems from, porque nunca quiere que se le vaya a acabar. Siempre siente como que I have the money for it, so I'm going to get it because I was never able to get it whenever I was, growing up and stuff. But dude, the hoarding.
Yeah.
And I have that closeness to me makes me be like, I do not want to be anything like this. Like I want to make sure. So for me, I'm like a clutter free type person. Like, you know how there's people who have like their appliances and they have their toaster, their air fryer, or whatever on their counter?
Oh, no.
I can't.
I just have my microwave.
No, I cannot. And like, or when people post their houses for sale, I'll look at like the kitchen or whatever. Dude, I need that thing to be clear because like the clutter just visibly makes me anxious.
I feel attacked.
No, I promise you.
No, because every time she comes over here, I'm doing laundry and my laundry's fucking everywhere.
No, and if anybody's curious, this stems from my childhood. It's not anybody today that I'm referring to. So, I just feel like people using that as a crutch is very frustrating because you don't see what it's doing to your kids. If you really feel debilitated by depression, if you really feel debilitated by anxiety, get help.
Yeah.
Get help. I promise you, your employer probably has some sort of employee assistance program, HR here, that you can reach out to, and they usually give you anywhere from I've seen anywhere from 3 to 6 sessions per case. So if you're struggling with something, you have resources available to help you. There's hotlines for that.
And don't feel embarrassed, because it's normal and it's okay. It's okay to get help. It's okay to reach out to a friend and say, hey, I need to vent. I need to talk. I just need to let this out. Trust me, us as friends, we're not going to judge you, because that's not something a real friend will do.
That's okay. What's not okay is living in a crazy situation where you've got maggots in your sink.
Oh God, no. Fuck
you've got your kids can't even move around. They can't access their toys. Everything that they have is dirty. There's bugs. There's roaches in your cabinets.
Dude.
I'm gonna, everybody watching, just keep an eye on my repost. I'm gonna find some, because I need to know I'm not alone in this.
No, you're not. You're not, because I've seen it firsthand.
Yes. And my mom would always say, like, la pobreza, no tiene que nada que ver con la cochinada. And now I see that, because, dude, there's those TikToks of people out in the rancho que ahí andan barriendo su casa. Y barren y trapean y lavan, ¿cómo se dice? They scrub their porch.
Yeah, with the
all badass, hasta se antoja ir afuera.
Right. Yes, con que tiran agua and then tallándole con el broom. Like that is so satisfying for me.
Something about that noise scratches my brain, like, in all the right places.
Yeah.
Just the brush with the soap and like the water splashing.
Dude, when I'm by myself, como ayer, for example, we had friends over Saturday night. And then Sunday, we were out and about at birthday parties and getting stuff done. But Monday, that's my cleaning day. I just love, that's like therapeutic for me.
Same.
And listening to music and just scrubbing and putting
and some
elbow grease in there.
Yes.
Like
the smell of fabuloso, the smell of pine sol. Like, it
doesn't look like it right now, because I have kids and people coming over often and stuff, so it looks like shit already. But yeah,
I didn't see shit.
Once upon a time.
And even if I did, I wouldn't judge you, because you don't fucking have maggots in your sink.
No, I don't ever.
If your fucking appliances are all over the counter, I'm fine. I'll live. I don't live here.
It's just my microwave.
I don't live here, so it's not gonna bother me. But no, in all seriousness, though, like, that just, to me, like, I can't live like that. But if I'm in a space where, like, that's that, like, it doesn't bother me. Like, it literally does nothing. I don't judge it. It's just, for me, my personal preference, like, the toaster. When I use a toaster every morning for my bagel, I take it out. I do what I need to do, and then it goes back in the cupboard. Air fryer, take it out, use it, put it back in the cupboard. And I think, now that we're on the subject of cleanliness, I think it's important to recognize your strengths versus weaknesses, because one thing that I will say, when your house is nice and clean and picked up, now, let me rephrase that. When your house is nice and tidy and picked up, your mental health, just something about it is like, I swear to you, when my house is like,
spotless,
really, really clean, and everything's picked up, and I know every room and every drawer and everything, something about that, I'm just like, I fall in love with my house and my life,
and you just want
everything all over again, but for me, it's important to recognize your strength versus weaknesses when it comes to stuff like that.
Same.
I have been talking all this shit about maggots in the sink, but one thing that I can tell you is, I'm not the sink has to be spotless before I go to bed every night, because I cannot sleep. That's just not who I am.
Yeah.
My dishes can stay in the sink one day, probably 2 days, before they'll get tended to.
But it's not a fucking huge ass pile
and
either.
There's never going to be maggots, and there's never going to be bugs, but there's people who are so, like, super tedious about, like, I cannot go to bed with a dish in the sink. And then there's people like me who are like, it's fine. It'll be there. Yeah. It'll be there tomorrow for me to deal with.
You know what? I used to be the type that I would be like, no, I have to do the dishes before I go to sleep, porque va a oler la cocina or something. And I just came to the point where I'm like, it's fine, Rosa. Like, it's fine if the fucking drinks aren't facing the forward in the fridge.
Yeah.
And then my kids fucking shit up all the time in the fridge, in the pantry, that I just fucking gave up.
Touching everything with their little fingers.
Mm-hmm. And I'm yeah.
And so for me, my weakness is organizing. I love organizing a space and like cleaning, like that, doing like that legwork. But my weakness is keeping up with it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting better, and I've gotten a whole lot better. But, you know, that for me is keeping up with it is a weakness. Doing it is a strength.
Laundry. I don't feel either or with it. Fuck laundry.
I feel like that's just a motherfucker in itself all the way around.
Fucking laundry, man.
It's
never ending, dude.
Seriously.
I feel like ya voy a terminar y nada que hay otro pinche canasto or hay otro. Oh no.
For me, that's half and half, because like my strength is gathering it, getting the kids to put their little piles together, throwing it in the washer, doing everything, putting it in the dryer. My weakness is getting that shit out of the dryer on time before it wrinkles, folding every piece of clothing, and then putting every piece of clothing up. That's my weakness. So I'm like 50-50.
You know
on that
what? When my husband and I met and stuff, and then, you know, along the way, we decide we want to move into, or he wants to move in with me, or I invite him to come move in with me. I told him, okay, mira. Number one, yo no plancho.
I don't iron either.
No. You better throw that shit back in the dryer for a little bit. And number two, I'll wash everything, but I'll put it the fuck up cuando yo esté lista. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know that
sucks. It
sucks. It's awful. It's
so
an awful
time-consuming
trait. I think that's my also toxic trait, because I will clean the whole fucking house. When it comes down to the laundry, dude, I'm like, fuck you.
Dude, for real, right? Like same.
Y luego nunca hayas los pinches pares de calcetines. And I'm like, you know what? I put them on a pile. Figure it the fuck out on y'all's own. I'm sorry. That's my
toxic trait.
Yeah, my toxic trait, because I just fucking hate it. Fucking hate laundry.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean,
it gets done eventually.
Yeah. I mean, there's clothes for people to wear. They just gotta find them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just keep in mind.
Time out. Or when you're like, oh, I have this? Oh, or wow, I didn't know I had this.
When did I get this shirt?
Yeah.
I thought I bought it, but
that's how you know.
That's so funny. But in all seriousness, like talking on the subject of mental health, you know, taking care of your house, taking care of your kids, taking care of like your duties and your responsibilities is just, it's so good for your mental health. You know, just find what's good for you, find what makes you happy, find what brings you joy, and just always revert back to that when you're having these moments of, you know, weakness where you're feeling like, because it comes and goes, dude. Like even now, there's been times where I'm just so overwhelmed by life. Like I don't get depressed, but I just feel like, dude, what else can I take? Like I literally can't take another one, but, or I literally can't take another hit, but I find joy in things that I like to do to not let myself fall into that place, because you are going to feel like you are a little bit depressed. You are going to feel like you're anxious about doing things, going places, but just always remember, like, it's a lot of it is in your own head. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And to get you through each and every single day, you have to look and put in effort to find those coping mechanisms that are going to work for you. Try ours first. Why don't you put some music on or go touch some grass or do it both simultaneously?
Last night, well, my uncle passed away last week. It was a tough situation for all the family and stuff. And I'm not really close to my mom's side of the family just because I grew up with my grandma and stuff. And I know everybody, and they're all amazing, beautiful people. But going to the funeral home last night is so triggering to me. Funerals are triggering for me, and people don't understand that. Like they expect you to be there, and so last night I told my husband I have to go make an appearance because I have to go pay my respects to my aunt, my cousins and stuff, my family. So we went, and I was able to do all that, and it was, I went towards the end, so it was over fairly quick for us because my husband worked so late. And this morning I couldn't attend the funeral home because I had to accompany my husband to all that he's getting done and stuff. I had to go with my husband today to go take care of all his things he needed to take care of this morning. So I wasn't able to postpone my husband's stuff, but then I wasn't able to attend the funeral. And honestly, que Dios me perdone, and I love my family and I feel so bad for them. And, I already gave them my condolences and everything. But deep down, I was like, que bueno that I really had a reason not to attend, because I would have felt guilty about it. But at the same time, it's like, it's so hard for myself to drag myself there and have to go through this anxiety, and then hearing people cry. Like, even being at the funeral home yesterday and seeing everybody so sad, and then embracing everybody and giving my condolences and stuff, I felt myself getting shaky. And my husband's like, "Estás bien?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just don't like funerals." I know nobody likes funerals. I know it. And some people cope with it better than others. I can't.
But see, I think that's a good lesson and a good reminder that you don't have to do anything you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
If going to a funeral triggers you that bad, but this person wasn't somebody who was like in your life every day, like tú ya fuiste, you paid your respects,
Mm-hmm.
you made sure that you told the family that los acompañas en su dolor, and that's it. And I hate that like society has made it to where, like, oh, well, if you don't go, you're a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, oh, no vino y, ay, no puedo creer que no vino al funeral, lo tuvo que hacer según ella, esto, lo otro. Like, to me, it's just like, no, I couldn't go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But like, obviously for somebody like super, super close to you, that would be a non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
But, I hate hearing that like you actually feel so bad about this, and you feel like you would have to explain to anybody that like, no, it's because these funerals just are so triggering for me. Like, no, like I couldn't go. Sorry.
Yeah. And I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't have to explain myself, but I do still feel guilty for not going. But at the same time, I did have prior engagements that couldn't be postponed. So I was kind of happy for that, because I'm like, okay, now I don't have to lie, which I don't freaking like to lie, because then my guilty conscience will just fucking eat at me. So I was like, okay, que bueno que this happened, pero ya fui. You know what I mean? So I don't feel as bad. Mm-hmm.
So off topic here, how do you feel about people taking pictures at funeral homes of the difunto?
Nobody better not fucking be taking pictures of me.
Do not take a picture.
God forbid. No.
I have never.
But make sure my lashes are on.
Your lashes? Okay.
Yeah. Make sure they're done. Make sure.
For me, my nail color and my nail shape.
Yeah, I mean.
Find my girl. She's on TikTok.
Okay.
Yeah. But. Dude, something about it. Maybe it's back with all this exposure that I had to like brujeria and superstitions and things like that. But I just feel like capturing a picture of a dead body like that, like, in the funeral, whatever. Something about it como que no deja en paz, no deja descansar a la persona. You sending it in the group chat or the group text. Like, I opened that on accident not too long ago, because I hardly ever am in that group chat with all my family from Mexico, because a lot of the stuff that they're talking about is like events that they're having over there. So I don't, engage a whole lot. But for some reason, I decided like, oh, let me scroll through this chat, see what went on this week.
What I missed.
Dude. I cannot, like, y'all better not. God forbid if I have to leave early, do not take pictures.
Yeah, no.
Take pictures if the casket's closed of mine, because I better have a really gorgeous casket.
I want a pearl white casket with gold handle, with the gold things.
Dang, I haven't thought about it that far. But Manuel knows I'm bougie as hell, so he'll make sure that
if it's cheaper to cremate me and put me right away in a mausoleum. Don't have me in your house.
Dude, my grandma's still in my house at my mom's.
I just feel
after like 20 more. I'm 34, so 30 years, dude. More than maybe a little less than 30, but my grandma's still there at my house, at my mom's house.
Yeah. I feel like that's not letting her rest in peace.
100%. But you can't convince my mom otherwise because my mom just says like, no, ahí está bien.
You know, mijo, his dad passed away 2 years ago.
Right.
And his grandma still has him at home. And I get it because it was so sudden. It was just, and God, me tocó el corazón for her.
But maybe keep a...
No, they're not supposed to separate the ashes.
You're not? Mm-mm. Oh, I don't know. But my mother-in-law, she has her daughter there at her house too. And that's even older than I am.
Yeah. When it had just happened, que en paz descanse, I had bought mijo a little urn with him and his dad's picture on it, so he can get some ashes and have them. And I had read, and it said you're not supposed to separate the ashes.
Wow.
And mijo was just talking about it the other day. He was like, "Mom, I messaged my grandma or my nana. He calls her nana, and I told her I want my daddy to be put to rest." Finally, like in the cemetery. And I was like, oh, really? I was like, okay. And then he's like, and she said she's going to do it. So hopefully she does it because he feels like he can't. He's like, I just want to go have a place.
Yeah, where he can
go cry and let, talk to him, even though I know he's in heaven, Mom. But the way he's so mature about it. Like, I'm just like, ugh. And I know he's going through it still. But he's so strong, dude. So strong.
I could never. Even the thought of me losing my dad now at 34, and I know with my mom too, like it's coming because obviously our parents are going to be leaving us before we do.
Yeah.
But dude, like I just cannot, and him so young,
God.
like having to like deal with all those emotions. It was tough
and because it sent me back to my anxiety because I was constantly
I remember how hard it was on you. Yeah.
I was constantly thinking, what if he tries to hurt himself? Or what if this? What if that? Like, it was just a constant...
What ifs of...
I wouldn't... There was nights where I wouldn't sleep because I would have to go in there and peek to make sure... there was times where I would get close to him just to feel him breathing because I was so terrified because he was so distraught. This happened it was a freak accident, So I was like having these nights where I would just cry. I would have to leave the room and go to the laundry room to cry, or I would sneak in his room to make sure he was breathing just because I couldn't bear the thought of him hurting himself or doing, I don't know. I just don't know.
Because he was such a good dad too, right?
He was an amazing dad. That's one thing I could never
talk shit about him.
Like, no.
So your son being so young, I think it's important for us to also touch on men's mental health because as much as women, as we struggle as women, as we face the daily challenges of women, as we multitask as women on a daily basis, I will take my life over my husband, not take my life. I will choose my life over my husband's life. Any day of the week. The pressures that men are under on a 24/7 basis is so heavy. And I don't feel like we take enough time to stop and really...
And give them credit for it.
Give them credit and think about that, right? Like, you have 4 children that are here that you support. Your 2 bonus children. Yourself, your husband. And your husband is the provider of your home. What does that do to them on a daily basis? I wake up, I don't want to go to work. I'm like, man, I don't want to freaking go to work. And if I one day choose to wake up and I'm like, you know what? No quiero trabajar. Or ya me voy a dejar de trabajar.
On them?
It's like, okay, no, dejo de trabajar, right? Because my husband's the provider. But dude, you're responsible for a whole family eating. Like,
Yeah.
and I know it sounds maybe so minuscule on a grand scale, but hearing the term, I've got to put food on the table, because I hear it all the time in my profession. Like in recruiting and talent acquisition, like you're looking for people to do a job that the company needs them to do. So a lot of times you get calls from people that are like desesperados. They haven't found work. They got laid off. The company closed. They're pieces of shit and, you know, leave a job just because somebody looked at them wrong. But regardless, they're still looking for work. And, you know, always in conversation, you're trying to find out with it. And when I hear, you know, it's gotten to a point where I just really need to put food on the table, and I'm willing to put up with whatever and do whatever I need to do to have something secure, because I'm tired of not knowing how much is going to come in or what this week is going to look like. Dude, that term it's to hard. Me, putting food on the table, it's such a, like, you know, put food on the table. That's a man's job, is put food on the table. But when you really think about it, like, it's not just food on the table. It's the clothes on your back. It's the soap that you wash your butt with. The house that you're living in. The 4 wheels that you drive outside.
La pasta con que te lavas el hocico.
The everything. Smallest things, you know, like that. It's just so wild. Like, so I think once you kind of start to understand that and you start to see that and you make an effort to really look at that, you would understand why 14 out of every 100,000 men take their life. The financial pressures, the social pressures, the, you know, relationship pressures.
Yeah. It's a lot.
And I don't think men are as strong as women are. In different aspects.
I feel like I'm glad that we touched, you know, on that subject, because they don't get enough credit, because everybody's like, oh, well, the man has to do it. You know? And there's households with only one income. Unlike us, you know, there's 2 incomes, you know? And what about the ones that it's just one income? Like, imagine?
Dude, I can't, because
rent is so high, especially here.
No,
the economy, rent is so high.
I don't know how people are doing it. I swear to God.
Car payments, insurance payments are so high. I pay so much in car insurance, and it's not because I have a lot of freaking
Maseratis outside.
Yeah, fucking Bentleys and shit. No, but goddamn,
yes,
you know,
dude.
It's a lot.
And so I just recently went on that, you know, talk on Instagram stories the other day, where it's just like, I really have been thinking about this, and like, I really am wondering, like, if it's time for me to come home, and we can do it, and it's going to take more strategic moves on our end and just making sure that we're scaling back and stuff. But at the same time, like, it's got to be hard for the man to know, like, hey, well, I've had all this help, and now all of that help is going away, and it's all coming on me. And like my husband having his business, I've seen the pressures that he has gone under. I've seen the stress, like, and for him to think, like, he's the type of person that, like, failure is just not an option.
Right.
Like, it is just absolutely not an option. But like, having that pressure of like coming home after a long ass day of work and seeing those 3 little faces, like, just light up to see him and run to greet him. Like, that's why I always make sure with my kids that they greet him when he walks in the door, and that before bed every night they go and they tell their dad good night. I'm gonna be like my mom. A mi papá, a tu papá, no lo vayan a tocar ni nada, but I'm gonna be over here talking shit. But in all seriousness,
le van a ir a decir buenas noches todas las noches.
Yes. And then go over there, tuck them in, and be talking shit. No, I will not. That is like, we're breaking cycles and generational curses in this house. But you know, they carry that too, and so. I just always like to make an effort. And like, there's a lot of people, specifically the TikTok series that we've been watching over the last couple of days. One of the things that she was saying is that he was always in a bad mood whenever he would get home, or that he needed some space whenever he got home. Me, I'm happy to give my husband that space, because dude, working out in the sun all goddamn day. Putting up with like a bunch of viejos, like, you know how it is out there with like the bosses in the oil field. Like, unos son bien mamones, otros son bien cabrones, otros son bien mandones and hijos de la chingada, like on purpose, like being a fucking dick just because they can be.
Yeah.
And so I always give my husband that time whenever he barely gets home, like, okay, ¿quieres ir a insertarte el baño? Like, it used to bother the shit out of me. And now I'm just like, hey, go, because I have noticed that when he comes out, like he's refreshed, he's cooled down, he changed, he's like different, you know? And so I just, if that bothers you guys, like I feel like you need to take a little bit of a step back and look at what they go through, right? Like I'd love for him to come home and just help pick up with the kids, like empieza a cambiar pañales, hacer de comer, whatever, but that's just not the reality for us and how our schedule looks.
My husband's the same way. He gets home and he'll greet me, he'll greet Rain and the boys, and then se va para el baño.
Yeah.
He'll take a shit probably and then take a shower and then viene, sale bañadito a toda madre.
It's a whole different person.
And and it's like más alivianado, más refrescado, and he's like in a good mood. I mean, he never shows up in a bad mood, but when he does, it's like, okay, give him his space. Y ahorita se aliviana, you know, and he does. And then he'll come out, we have dinner, and everything's hunky-dory, you know?
And to think that used to bother me, and it'd be like, well, why do you have to spend all that time in the bathroom? Or why do you have to, you know, why can't you just come home and love on me as soon as you get home? And like, why can't you just be like ready to go, like jump in with the kids? And I remember it took me a while, but one day he like sat down to explain it. He's like, dude, it's because like the traffic, like my commute, sometimes the heat, like it's really hard on me sometimes. And like just being able to just come home in the quiet, like just have a minute, like I just feel like I can release all of that and the bad day or the good day, whatever, from work, and then be able to be fully there for y'all. And dude, when I started being like, yes, baby, like always give him a hug and a kiss when he walks in the door, the kids all greet him, y luego se va para allá. Dude, it's the whole dynamic in our home shifted.
Because my husband says, andar en el sol todo el día
te
ataranta, you know? And my husband's in a fucking bucket. He's a electrician for the oil field.
Más cercas
al sol a la verga. So he comes home fucking renegrido from the sun. And sometimes, dude, he won't come back out. Like, I'll give him, like, the certain time that he usually takes. Si no sale, I'll go peek in, and he's fucking knocked the fuck out. Yeah. And I'm like, pobrecito, you know?
Dude, pobrecitos. And not only that, but like, I don't know how it is like in other places or where you're watching from, but like out here, all of those not concrete pads, all of those well pads and all of those locations, it's all white dirt.
So, el resplandor.
Sale the heat. It's like Ojinaga heat too, que sale del piso. And it blinds you too because it's so bright in the sun. Like, I just don't know how to explain it, but it's horrible. And for them to spend the entire day out there, like, ¿quién no va a llegar harto?
And also, ladies, if you pack your man lunch, you don't have to do this every day, but every now and again, write him a little note and tell him how important he is and how much you appreciate him. Because believe me, that will be so like life-changing for him in that day, because he's gonna feel appreciated and he's gonna be like, okay, le va a echar más ganas, you know. And it's so important. They need to know how much you appreciate them and how much you say thank you, you know?
Even if their love language is not words of affirmation, which we will definitely have a whole topic on not words of affirmation. We could. That's my love language.
Mine is touch.
Yours is no, I can't. Yeah. I think that one's like last on mine.
Mine is touch, but in the bed, like, cuddle me for a little bit y lo
we'll have a whole topic on love languages, but even if his love language is not words of affirmation, slip a little note in there. Or if his thing is like, you know, learn his love language and show that to them sometimes because they'll appreciate it.
On his chip bag or something. Eres un chingón, you know, just because I do that for my husband.
Really?
And he'll laugh and he'll send me a message like gracias. Like he'll reply to me. He'll be like, oh, gracias por la notita. And
see, my husband will be like, if I wrote que chingón or whatever, I'm like, ¿y tú qué traes? But that's just how he is, you know. Like for me, I'd have to write something like, you mean a lot to us, or thank you for your hard work. We appreciate you. We see you, something like that. But I can't joke like that.
I like to change it up. Yeah. I like to change it up, or he'll be like,
keep it spicy, y'all, in more ways than just notes.
Yeah.
Allegedly, from what I hear, I don't know. Yo no sé. Al rato le pregunto al compadre a ver.
Yeah, because I'm 8 years older than him, so.
So all that to say, and all that to kind of just touch on is like, check on your men.
Yeah.
You know, like acknowledge their hard work, acknowledge how hard life is for them as well, because they face different challenges than we do.
Yeah.
The last thing that I wanted to go over was piggybacking on that is checking on your strong friends. How many times have you seen that meme around? And I'll tell you, like, people consider me extremely strong. They consider me extremely like bullheaded and strong-headed and like a leader and like, okay, I got this, and like, oh, well, whatever she does, like, you know, it's got to be good because she doesn't just make stupid decisions, right? And I 100% agree with that. But dude, the type of person that I am really is lonely. And I never understood those memes because I was just like, well, what do you mean check on your strong friends? Like, no, they're fine. Like, or we're fine, you know? But now I see it more as just like checking on your strong friends just to make them feel seen, make them feel validated, make them feel appreciated, because I don't need you to check on me and see how my mental health is. That's just not something that I go through. I will willingly share that. But I think for me, sometimes I get the type of person I am, I get so caught up in like the rat race and like always just going in 100% and giving 120% on a daily basis, 24/7. That's what's hard for me. And me, the way that I can cut anybody off, like, it's lonely.
Same.
It's so lonely because it's just like, there's people that could be in my life that did something to me que no me gustó, no me pareció. Yeah, like, I get my distance from it. But like, if I was less strong or less headed like that, or less strong headed like that, la gente barre y trapea conmigo, you know? So I feel like hopefully I gave you a little bit of a different perspective as to what I'm referring to when you see those, or what people are referring to when you see those memes. Like, checking on your strong friends is...
See, and I'm not big on reaching out a lot, and I hate that I'm not, because I feel like I should, but I'm not one to be constantly checking in, like, hey, how are you? I'm not like that.
You know what it is for me? Is I'm running at capacity, at full capacity all of the time. That for me, like, having to pick up the phone or send a text, it's not as simple as just picking up the phone and sending a text. Like, hey, how are you? How's life? And somebody responding like, oh, everything's good. It's always, I guess for me and my twisted little brain, it's always like some time that I have to set aside for that conversation.
Yeah, because they'll reply,
energy that I have to send.
They'll reply, and then we get so busy and don't reply back, and then that person's going to think
offended, like, yes, and they're not wrong, like, because, you know, and then it's just no, like I 100% understand.
What I'm talking about, right? Happened to you the other day that you shared with me about.
She doesn't watch, so I think I can talk about it.
Yeah, you
even if she watches, like, yes,
it wasn't
that hurt my feelings.
It wasn't that you forgot. It's just that you get so busy with life that, you know, it happens to the best of us, you know.
I have a really dear friend who I love with my whole entire heart so much that she recently asked me, she was like, hey, we're going to be needing a sitter. We're looking for a sitter. And I was just like, oh yeah. Like, my friend had told me about this other lady that lives over there on the west side, you know, like, yeah, you know, let me get her number. And she was like, no, I'm not going to need it right now. She was like, but I'll reach out if I do. And so some time passes, and then she texts me. She's like, hey, can you get me the name of that sitter and the phone number so that I can call her because we are going to need her. And I remember clearly reading that message and being like, you know what? I need to ask for that phone number. Never once thought about it again. Like,
your fucking life is so chaotic, dude, because
never once did it cross my mind again. I saw her post on Facebook about the baby and, you know, them talking about it, and no me, like, it didn't come back to me.
And then she's got pregnancy brain, y'all. So
a couple of days later, I am receiving a text message that was so passive aggressive, but like, I didn't take it as passive aggressive. I took what she said. Okay. Remember, we're leaving emotions out of stuff. And she literally said something along the lines of like, it's okay, Jezebel. We don't need it anymore. Thanks anyway.
What?
Dude, I was so pissed about that because you couldn't have just nudged me and been like, hey, just waiting for that number. Or like, hey, have you found that lady's number? Or hey, have you gotten a chance to look or whatever?
I would have been like, bitch, you forgot about me, huh?
Or send me that little meme of the skeleton that's like on the bench that says, just here waiting for the phone number. Or just here waiting for my friend.
Something funny, but not like that.
Yeah, but the fact that like she couldn't have even like reminded me or whatever, but she took the time to say like, oh, I don't need it anymore. Thanks anyway. I just was like, well, dang. Okay. Like, I'm sorry. And I took it as like, initially I got offended, but then I realized, okay, take the emotion out of it. Like, what did she say in that text? And the text literally says, like, I think the thanks anyway is what really got me.
Yeah.
Like, that part is the one that I was just like, ¿pa qué? Like, you could have just said, hey, I don't need that phone number anymore, whatever. But I, being the person that I am, was just like, okay, I ha-ha'd her text, and then I replied and said, oh my God, I am so stinking sorry, because I truly meant it. I really was sorry because I fucked up. Like, I don't remember ever thinking about that text again after she sent it or after I read it and thought, I need to get that phone number.
Bitch, I can't even remember what I had for dinner last night. Like,
yeah, I'm
very forgetful.
Mind you, it was 2 weeks after that. And she asked me on the day after tax day. And y'all know tax day is just freaking insane for all of us. But yeah, I took it wrong. Yeah, it might have been on my end, but I didn't like that. And, you know, to me, no había necesidad de eso, you know? And so the whole thing about like checking on your friends or whatever, that's not how you check on somebody.
Yeah.
But what we were talking about was the like how it takes energy and effort and time to like reach out to that. And it's not that I don't want to make the time or effort or energy. It's that like, I know it's going to be like a whole thing. Right. And I want to be mindful of that. But then me being that way then causes more time to go by and pass by. And I think that's where.
Yeah, because we're just all so busy. And it's not that we don't care about our friends or relatives or whatever. It's just life gets us, you know?
Right.
Life gets to us.
No, it's difficult, but, you know, check on your friends. And if somebody is short with you, don't take it as them being short or like, hey, I'm good. Hope all is well with you or whatever. Take that as just like, oh, she's doing
busy.
well.
She's good. She's good though.
She's
she
good.
Replied.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important to check on your friends, but it doesn't have to be a whole thing. And I feel like if we can all collectively have that mindset of like a simple text of like, hey, comandas, or hey, how are you doing, or whatever, like, oh, all is good, you know, work is good, we're healthy, you know, whatever, or we've got this going on this weekend or whatever, like, okay, you know.
And you know, what people say about me whenever I do talk to a friend or whatever, I always say I love you, and she always says I love you right before hanging up, because it's so important. Like, people think that's weird. No, it's not weird. If you're
fucking
a true
weird
friend, you're gonna say, okay, love you, bye, or I love you so much, have a great day, something, because that little minuscule thing to you can mean so much to us, because it really does. It means so much, because I'm like, oh, my friend, you know.
Or somebody going through a hard time, like, you know, and just like hearing like an I love you can just do something so much for somebody, to like for their mental health or for their little heart,
For
or,
sure.
you know, even like the people who aren't in a relationship, like maybe they don't have a relationship with family or whatever. Like, can you imagine like what a little I love you to them does, you know? And my whole thing, like, I'll put it on Snap or I'll put it on Instagram, and like I'll say something crazy, but then I'll be like, okay, love you, bye. That's always like my whole thing. I'm gonna need to put that on the t-shirt. Be like, okay, love you, bye. And then on the back, ándale pues. Oh my God, look at that.
Did we just come up on some merch? Did we just become best friends?
Did we just conjure up some merch? But yeah, so just let people know that you love them. Let them know that you're thinking of them, or like, hey, you miss them or whatever. It doesn't have to be a whole thing. You don't have to iron out a whole day or a whole half day or a whole, you know, whatever to have a conversation. It's just like, no, like, thank you so much for reaching out to me. Like, my heart got so happy just hearing from you. You know, like that's what it does for me. So thank you so much for joining us on episode number 8. We're so close to 10. 10 is like such a nice round even number. We really had a lot of fun talking about like all the mental health and you know, how important it is. So
if you know anybody that's dealing with mental health, share this podcast with them, and that way they know they're not alone and there is help out there.
Yeah. And, you know, that's for somebody who's like truly struggling. And if you think that maybe somebody is just using it as a crutch or just something that they always say because they want to sound cool, like, also share this with them, because they can get a little bit of a different perspective of like, hey, like, it's not all, you know, going to be, it's not all bad. And, you know, share some resources with them, or be like, hey, hop on YouTube and, you know, find some coping mechanisms, or get online and do some research, or like, you know, use some phone numbers.
Find a hobby. Yeah.
We really hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and we hope to see you for episode number 9 next week.
Bye.
Bye.